Have you ever looked at someone in charge and quietly thought, how did they end up leading anyone? It's a thought most of us have had. You see, people who clearly lack the skill, wisdom, or even basic self-awareness rise to the top, while those who seem smarter, more capable, more grounded, stay stuck. It almost feels rigged, doesn't it? But what if it isn't random? What if there's an actual reason this happens, over and over again? Today we're pulling back the curtain on a very real, very uncomfortable truth. The world doesn't always reward intelligence. In fact, sometimes it punishes it. And instead, it elevates something else entirely. To understand this strange pattern, we need to talk about one of the most brutally honest thinkers in history, Niccolo Machiavelli. But don't worry, this isn't a dry history lesson. His ideas hit uncomfortably close to home, even in modern politics, business, and everyday life. Machiavelli didn't write about how people should behave. He wrote about how they do behave. He cut through idealism with surgical precision and showed what power really looks like beneath the surface. And his work helps explain why so many incompetent people end up calling the shots. One of his most famous lines is, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are." That single sentence explains so much. Because in the real world, especially when it comes to influence and leadership, perception beats reality. You don't have to actually be skilled. You just need to look like you are. Now, let's unpack this. Think about what it means to be truly intelligent. It often comes with things like curiosity, complexity, hesitation, and even doubt. A smart person questions themselves. They think in layers. They understand how much they don't know. But in a room full of people trying to decide who to follow, that self-awareness often gets mistaken for weakness. Meanwhile, someone with bold, unshakable confidence, regardless of accuracy, seems strong, certain, and worthy of trust. It's why someone like Socrates, arguably one of the wisest minds in history, was condemned to death. He questioned too much. He made people uncomfortable. Compare that to leaders who rise by offering easy answers and big promises. Simplicity and confidence win attention. Complexity gets ignored, or worse, punished. There's even data to back this up. A 2017 study found that leadership effectiveness correlates positively with intelligence, up to a point. Beyond an IQ of about 120, it starts to work against you. Why? Because when you're too far ahead in your thinking, people don't relate to you. You stop connecting. Your ideas sound complicated. You stop speaking their language, and they stop following. But it's not just intelligence at play here. Another strange factor is confidence, and how often we mistake it for competence. Enter the Dunning-Kruger effect. Back in the 90s, two psychologists, David Dunning and Justin Kruger, identified a very human flaw. The people who know the least often think they know the most, and the people who actually know what they're talking about, they tend to doubt themselves because they understand how much complexity they're dealing with. Or as Shakespeare once put it, "The fool doth think he is wise, but the wise man knows himself to be a fool." And here's where it gets dangerous. In leadership, this effect gets amplified. Studies show that overconfident people are more likely to be seen as leaders, even if they're terrible at their job. Their certainty feels convincing, even if it's empty. Look at people like Adam Newman of WeWork. His business model was flimsy at best, but the way he talked, unshakable, magnetic. That confidence pulled in billions in funding. Or take Masayoshi Son of SoftBank. He lost nearly $70 billion through bad bets, but maintained investor faith with charisma alone. In these cases, charisma becomes a shield. Overconfidence looks like vision. And that illusion is powerful. But it doesn't stop there. Machiavelli also pointed out a chilling pattern that explains how incompetence stays in power once it gets there. It's something you've probably seen in real life without realizing. Incompetent leaders often surround themselves with people who are even less competent. Why? Because it makes them feel safe. If no one around them can outshine them, there's no threat. Machiavelli said, "The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him." And when the leader is insecure, they won't hire for talent. They hire for loyalty. This creates what psychologists call a competence drought. Imagine a tree that keeps dropping seeds that only grow into weaker, thinner versions of itself. Over time, you're left with a whole forest that's fragile, unqualified, and unable to challenge the main tree. You see this in history, like under Emperor Commodus in Rome. Anyone competent was removed and replaced by flatterers. The system collapsed under its own stupidity. But you also see it now, in companies, governments, even schools. When was the last time you were in a workplace where asking smart questions made you the enemy? That's what this looks like. It's not just a matter of bad hiring, it's a survival tactic. If everyone around you is weaker, no one challenges you, no one threatens your seat. And the cycle repeats. This network effect slowly infects entire institutions. But why do we let it happen? Why do people keep following leaders who clearly don't deserve to be in charge? The answer has a lot to do with human psychology and our deep need for certainty. Human beings crave certainty. It's wired into our psychology. We don't just prefer answers, we need them, especially in times of chaos or fear. And here's the problem. Genuine intelligence rarely gives you black and white answers. Real experts, they speak in probabilities, they use nuance, they admit what they don't know. And while that's honest, it's not emotionally satisfying. Machiavelli saw this centuries ago. He wrote, "The great majority of mankind are satisfied with appearances as though they were realities, and are often more influenced by the things that seem than by those that are." That still holds true. The average person doesn't want a leader who says, "This is complicated." They want one who says, "I've got it under control." It doesn't even matter if it's true. Look at any major crisis, whether it's a pandemic, economic collapse, war, or climate change. Most people don't rally behind the thoughtful expert. They follow the voice that sounds certain, even if it's dangerously wrong. That's why political figures who oversimplify issues often beat experts in debates. One gives you a painful but accurate picture. The other offers an easy fantasy. And the fantasy wins votes. In healthcare, actual doctors will say, "We have trade-offs, risks, and side effects." Politicians, "One fix solves everything." That's not leadership, it's manipulation. But it works. Even worse, we're not just fooled by these simple answers. We actually defend them. A 2017 Yale study found that when people were shown math-based problems tied to political issues, their ability to interpret the data dropped if the answer went against their beliefs. And the smarter they were, the more likely they were to twist the data to defend their side. Think about that. Intelligence alone doesn't protect you from bias. Sometimes it just makes you better at defending your own delusions. That's what psychologists call motivated reasoning. We want to be right more than we want the truth. And when we're scared, we want closure. We want clean, final answers. This is called the need for cognitive closure. It makes us gravitate towards strong voices and simple narratives, even if they're fake. So now you have insecure leaders with inflated confidence, a public that rewards simplicity over substance, and a brain that naturally clings to certainty. But it gets darker, because even the people who do know better, who are intelligent, can't always compete. Why? Because of morality. Here's where Machiavelli gets unsettling. He argued that if you want to keep power, you need to learn how not to be good, and you need to use that knowledge wisely. In other words, ethics, when taken too far, can actually be a weakness in the world of power. Think about it. If two people are competing for the same role, but one of them is willing to lie, cheat, flatter, manipulate, and betray, while the other is too decent to stoop that low, who wins? Most of the time, the one without boundaries. History proves this over and over. Cicero, one of Rome's most brilliant and moral minds, lost to Julius Caesar, a man who broke laws, crushed norms, and crossed lines. Caesar was ruthless. He won. Even today, people with psychopathic traits, like charm without empathy, rise faster in corporate environments. A study from the University of British Columbia found that those traits, when combined with social intelligence, actually accelerate career success. And this isn't just in the West. It happens everywhere, from China's brutal business culture to Scandinavia's supposedly egalitarian workplaces. Manipulative people still win if the system allows it. It becomes a race to the bottom. If bad behavior gets rewarded, eventually good people either drop out or start copying the bad behavior just to survive. Over time, systems stop rewarding merit and start rewarding ruthlessness. And the moment that happens, smart, ethical people begin to fall behind. But don't lose hope just yet, because Machiavelli didn't describe these patterns to encourage them. He described them so we could see them. His goal wasn't to create tyrants, it was to open our eyes to how power works. Once you understand the game, you can start to change it. Not every system rewards stupidity. Not every environment punishes integrity. The difference lies in how the environment is designed. Let's break it down. There are 4 key factors that determine whether incompetence flourishes or fails. The first is feedback. In high feedback environments, where mistakes are obvious and immediate, stupidity doesn't survive long. Think of a pilot. If you crash planes, you don't stay employed. Or a surgeon. If patients keep dying, the truth catches up fast. These environments naturally reward competence. But in low feedback environments, like politics or corporate boardrooms, the effects of bad decisions are delayed or can be blamed on someone else. A bad CEO can manipulate quarterly reports. A bad politician can blame the opposition. That delay creates space for incompetence to hide. The second factor is power structure. Centralized systems with weak checks and balances become breeding grounds for corruption and stupidity. When one person or group holds too much power without oversight, bad ideas go unchallenged. But when power is distributed and accountability is built in, like in some European governance models, there's less room for deception and more room for scrutiny. Third is complexity. In fields where success is easy to measure, competence shines through. But in complex domains like art, economics, media, where success is subjective, that's where style wins over substance. If most people don't know how to evaluate what you do, you can fake your way through it for a very long time. And finally, incentives. Systems that reward short-term results over long-term integrity will always favor the charming liar over the honest builder. The 2008 financial crisis was a masterclass in this. People who took wild risks were rewarded with millions. When it all collapsed, the smart, cautious voices had been ignored. So ask yourself, in your own life, which systems reward real skill? And which ones reward appearance, politics, or loudness? This awareness matters. Because you don't rise in life by playing the wrong game in the wrong arena. You rise by learning the rules and choosing the right battlefield. And here's where it gets personal, because even in broken systems, even when incompetence feels like it's winning, you're not powerless. You still have choices, especially when you understand the psychological tactics incompetent leaders use to cling to power. The first tactic is tribalism. By dividing people into us versus them, bad leaders make disagreement feel like betrayal. They don't just want supporters, they want loyalists. Once someone fuses their identity with a leader, criticism feels like a personal attack. It's how cults are formed. It's how people defend obvious lies with passion. The goal is to make you fight for the leader, even when they're clearly wrong, because if they fall, part of your identity falls too. The second tactic is information overload. Incompetent leaders create constant chaos, crisis after crisis, scandal after scandal. It's not always because they're disorganized. It's often deliberate. Because when you're emotionally drained and mentally distracted, you stop asking deeper questions. You just react. You're too tired to resist. The third is contradiction without consequence. Orwell called it doublethink, believing two things at once. One day they say one thing, the next day the opposite. But they do it so often that eventually, people stop expecting consistency at all. Truth becomes liquid, lies become background noise. And in that fog, accountability disappears. The fourth, and maybe most devastating, is economic vulnerability. When people are desperate, they'll follow anyone who promises relief, even if it's a lie, especially if it's a lie that feels good. In many parts of the world, economic fear is weaponized. Politicians create fake enemies, immigrants, outsiders, conspiracies. So, people have something to blame while the real problems go unaddressed. It's emotional manipulation wrapped in political packaging. So, what do we do with all this? If intelligence, honesty, and competence aren't always rewarded, how do we protect ourselves and maybe create a better future? It starts with awareness. Awareness is your armor. When you understand how you're being influenced, you're less likely to fall for it. There are 3 habits that make you stronger in a world like this. The first is intellectual humility. Knowing what you don't know. Research shows that people who are humble in their thinking, who can say, "I might be wrong," are less likely to be manipulated. They're better at sorting facts from feelings, and they're harder to fool with false certainty. The second is media literacy. Not just knowing how to read, but knowing how to filter. Being able to ask, is this information designed to inform me or to provoke me? The best minds in history were selective with what they consumed. Be the same. Don't let your attention be hijacked. And third, philosophical reflection. You have to step back from the daily noise and ask deeper questions. What are your principles? What do you stand for? What kind of leader would you follow, and why? Ancient Stoics practiced daily reflection to protect their minds from the chaos around them. That discipline still works today, but individual awareness isn't enough. Systems matter too. If we want to build a world that values competence, we have to design for it. That means building feedback systems where lies can't hide, boards that challenge CEOs, institutions that value disagreement instead of punishing it, journalism that clarifies instead of sensationalizing. We need to reward diverse thinking, not just diverse backgrounds. Diverse teams don't agree on everything, and that's the point. They poke holes in each other's logic, they catch blind spots, and together they build something stronger. We also need transparency. The more complex the system, the more clear the reporting must be. Jargon and secrecy are shields for bad actors. Honesty thrives in sunlight. And finally, we need education that goes beyond test scores. We need to teach young people how to think, not just memorize. We need to teach ethics, not just efficiency. The Greeks had academies. The Renaissance had humanists. What do we have? So, what kind of system are you living in? In your school, your job, your community? Do you see the signs of competence rising? Or the symptoms of stupidity entrenching itself? Are people rewarded for wisdom or for noise? Are leaders building others up or silencing the smart ones to protect themselves? Because here's the real takeaway. Machiavelli didn't write to praise manipulation. He wrote to expose it. He wanted us to see the game being played so we could stop losing to the ones who cheat. His most famous line says it all. It is not titles that honor men, but men that honor titles. That means your position doesn't define you. Your character does. And the real solution isn't to become more ruthless. It's to become sharper, more aware, more deliberate. If you want to rise without losing your soul, you need to play a different game. One built on truth, not illusion. On clarity, not noise. On courage, not conformity. Stupidity may win in the short term, but intelligence with integrity, that's what leaves a legacy. So, ask yourself, where are you playing small to fit into broken systems? And what would change if you decided to stop? If you found this breakdown powerful, share it with someone who's stuck in a world that rewards the wrong things. Help them see the pattern, and comment below. Have you seen these dynamics at play in your own life? Let's build the kind of awareness that breaks the cycle. And if you want more videos like this, ones that challenge how the world really works, subscribe, like, and turn on notifications. Because we're not just here to talk, we're here to think sharper, live wiser, and stop letting fools run the show. Until next time, remember, you're not crazy for noticing the system's broken. You're awake. Stay that way.